So, with the UK telling people this week to be ready for the 3 days and to evacuate, and the lamb to the slaughter, Prime Minister also saying this week current restrictions are likely to remain in place for the next 6 months. Perhaps a timely reminder of the timeline that we put out in Expose 1 or 2. Is in order. Well, I think it was Expose 1, but I'm not too sure. And it stated, eventually end phase 1 quarantine once they get enough public pushback, June 2020, and publicly state that they still think it's too early to end the isolation, but are going to do it anyway. Once the public go back to normal in June, July, wait a few weeks and then continue to overhype the research strain mortality rate, August through September 2020, and combine it with the increase in deaths due to people dying from standard illnesses at a higher rate than normal due to having highly weakened immune systems from months of being in isolation to help further pad the mortality rate and hype the upcoming phase 2 lockdown. Eventually enact phase 2 quarantines, October, November 2020, on an even more extreme level, and blame the protesters, mostly people who don't trust their government already, for the cause of the larger second wave, with the premise of we told you so, it was too early, this is all your fault because you need a haircut and your freedoms have consequences. And should this unfold in this manner, in the report it says the US elections will be cancelled, delayed or suspended. Enforce phase 2 quarantines at a much more extreme level, increasing the penalty for defiance, replace fines with jail time. Deem all travel as non-essential, increase checkpoints, they've already started, including military assistance that Trump has called for, increased tracking and tracing of the population, mandatory apps, take control of food and gas, large-scale shortages so that people can only get access to essential product services if they are first given permission. Keep the phase 2 lockdown in place for a much longer period of time than the phase 1 lockdown, continuing to destroy the global economy, further degrade the supply chain and further amplify the food shortages and the like. Quell any public outrage using extreme actions, force, and make anyone who defies them appear as public enemy number 1 to those who are willing to submit. After a rather long phase 2 lockdown, 6 months plus, roll out the vaccination program and vaccination certification and make it mandatory for everyone, giving priority access to those that submitted from the start, and have those that are for it attack those that are against it, saying that they are a threat and the cause of all the problems, stating we can't go back to normal until everyone takes the vaccine, and that people define them are hurting our way of life and therefore are the enemy, turning the people against each other. If the majority of people go along with the agenda and let those people enter the new system, new normal, while limiting the minority that defy the agenda's ability to work, travel and live. If the majority of people go against the agenda, then release the weaponized SARS, HIV, MERS, Tribid strain as phase 3, a virus with a 30+% mortality rate as a final scare to push the minority to quickly become the majority and give a final "we told you so" to those that didn't listen. enact the new economy model, Microsoft Patent 060606, cryptocurrency system using body activity data, which is based on human behavior and willingness to submit, which is a tweaked version of Black Mirror's 15 million merits. Using food, water, shelter, and other essentials as a weapon of enforcement of the new economic system. Basically, do what we want and get rewarded. Gain credit, score, and gain more access to things you need to survive, or go against what we want and get penalized. Lose credits, score, and lose access to things you need to survive. Which is exactly the same concept in the series Continuum. You will have free will only under binding restrictions, and essentially what they're telling you is you comply or die. Boris Johnson warned of bringing troops on the street in the UK, and Trump told Americans the military will administer the vaccines. Then throw in that the trustee told Alan James that Trump is a good guy, but he is the black sun, and perhaps a bigger picture emerges. UK NHS put out a preparedness statement for households this week and recommended a bug-out bag and to have a plan and supplies for 72 hours. Nice shift of words, that. 72 hours is 3 days, and in biblical BS terms, you all know what that means. They said create a grab bag with key items in case of a sudden evacuation. But what are they evacuating you from? It doesn't state. But perhaps if you follow the plethora of channels on the alt media now, you will believe you are following the fake Dolores Cannon narrative and heading to 5D land on some spaceships. Why do I say fake? Because Dolores Cannon was not the medium. It was her husband who channeled, and she just relayed his story after he died. And it's no coincidence that Dolores Cannon is being pushed again in the alt media, a convenient saviour programme solution offered again to the sheep to follow the Westgate pattern again, like those people have done for 78,000 years. It is the seducement and lazy path that too many follow and have fallen for, and why very few on this planet make the East Gate. It's the left-hand path, trodden so well by the elites to seduce you in so they can harvest your energy. Don't believe me? That's fine by me. It's your choice of whether you choose to be the battery and have your energy siphoned, or develop and have your energy boosted. The West Gate, of course, is on the left and is the left-hand path, and they have agents to seduce the people there for the harvest. Sun rises in the east and sets in the west on the left-hand path. The sun sets and turns into the dark. Why did he call it sunset? Because of the old gods game again, now being repeated again before our eyes. I told you we would see this year, and we will take a peek into that in a later show. So why is it called sunset? The god Set and his army of dark minions is Y. Listen closely to this next part. It will have double meaning. You play the game and you become the hunted game. And then you are set. Once a connection is made, you create a match. Then you are the game, set and match. Tennis meaning comes from 3 words: hold, receive and take, which in that order is a binding. Hold onto something is the bind. You then receive or greet the bind and then take whoever is the bind. Tennis is played with a racket, but racket has 2 meanings. A net, which is the trap. Players on each side of the net, which is then flipped, and then they're on the opposite side of the net. Think of the egg timer analogy and then stand on your baseline. You have an umpire, which also means to judge. He or she is a representative of a high priest or priestess adjudicating the court. Court has 2 meanings as well. And as the song says, and you know sometimes words have 2 meanings. The object of the game is to return. Is that return to Set, where you will serve him and become a seeded player, which means to handicap. Then you have the deuce point, which means 2. But is it another binding term? And perhaps this description of deuce provides the answer. Is it deuce or Zeus? The word deuce became a mild oath by 1710, about 50 years after it was first attested in the sense of bad luck, the devil, etc. Perhaps because 2 was the lowest score, and probably by similarity to the Latin deus, and related words meaning God. That God was Set. After he rallied you, he then volleyed you, backhanded you all in his court to then pass judgment on you. You then need a new set of balls, please, as Set has just kicked in your testicles and served them to you on a silver platter, which you are awarded if you win the game. Is Arthur Ashe, who has statues of him everywhere, a real name or a play on words? Actually, we don't know his real name, as he came from an African family and adopted the plantation owner's name of Ashe. Is it Arthur Ashe? Or is it Arth of in ashes? Some may think that is far-fetched, but there are plenty of other examples to make you think about that. Tennis has a few anagrams of sent in, sin net, sin 10. 10 is the decimal, and it's 1s and 0s again. Tennis is also an anagram of set, and like the old motel-like building called an inn, for those going to the West Gate, Perhaps the sign says, "Welcome to the Set Inn. Enjoy your stay." Game, set, and match may never sound the same again now. Apologies to one particular member. But once you join and play in the set, and like in the game of tennis, love becomes zero. Welcome back to the final part. So, one member says, I've ruined her dog, and another one says, I've ruined their sport. Sorry. But I am equal opportunities, you know. It's all there. Once you play with the words and the two meanings. So I thought that was an topical piece, given some mentions of Yellow Rose for Texas people were making this week. Final piece. What is the convergence? What is the transition? What happens at the end of the vortex? What is the east and west gate? Are some of the questions asked about from a recent show. Now the loop is ending, although it appears it has to play out to the end now, and it will get ugly, painful, and elements of doubts and stress thrown into the mix as well. But it is ultimately one of triumph amongst the chaos that has and will unfold. There are many aspects to life beyond the physical that sadly too few on this planet comprehend or understand. But when a whole solar system is ready for the next leap forward, it has to move to a different time-space, space-time, and sometimes to another universe to progress forward. Universes are separated by a thin membrane that we can cross with this meat suit aligned with the soul and spirit package we have. Other species largely cannot, and it's why they piggyback us. Now, despite their several and unending attempts to date, they have not been able to replicate this version of humanoid. And when a system is ready for expansion, it goes through the G cloud, which ensures organic life only. Inorganic will not survive that field. But the solar system needs to be in the right region of space to merge both the galaxy or the solar system and the G cloud together to then create the boost to progress on a higher path and frequency. Once that bond is completed, and if we are developed enough, we have the potential to pass through the universal membrane and into another universe. To those who inhabit that universe, they will see it as a burst of light forming. If it's a new universe and scientists of the future unaware of what the remnants of gas, clouds and dust are, they will record it as the Big Bang, of where everything in the universe started. Scientists hypothesized these passing through a membrane and returning when operating at the cell level. You start off with one cell. It briefly goes missing and then returns with 2 cells. Those 2 cells go missing and return with 4 cells. And the process is repeated with the cells going missing and returning doubled in size. This could be a process of time and space. It could also be a process that those cells go into other universes, and also the possibility those cells go to source and return. Either way, it is an extraordinary in and of itself of the sheer possibilities we all possess. I was pleased that Glenn and Angela are not only able to work out the riddle, but do their own live version this week. They were like children in a candy store. Yes, they tested it themselves, and yes, they saw the riddle in action. But life is a precious resource that is all too lightly taken for granted in this fast-paced, greed, madness and chaos-based world until that life is taken away. Then we ponder. And yes, we should stop and ponder long and hard on ourselves and our impact in and on life. Are our own actions, statements and behaviours conducive to ourselves and others? Is something we should all take into account. Whilst many paid their respects this week, some chose to ignore common decency and not pay respects, and that says more about them than anything I could say. Rivalry and bitterness serves no one except the dark forces who thrive on those divisions and low vibrational frequencies. We end this show tonight with a song as a tribute to my dad, whose current lifetime ended this week, and this was his favourite song. Good night from me, and good night to Dad.